When all my efforts to find a job failed, I finally thought of starting a business. I told Rajat about it. Rajat has been my childhood friend. We have done every good and bad deed together. In school, we stood on the bench holding our ears as punishment. In college, we got caught in the grip of student politics and spent 2 nights in a lockup. We even fell in love with the same girl and after being caught, received a pair of kicks together. That is the kind of friendship we share. We have quarreled countless times, fought even more, yet the beginning of every day has always been together. After hearing my business plan, Rajat became quite enthusiastic. But the obstacle was capital. The condition of both our families was miserable. Our families struggled just to feed 2 grown men of 26 twice a day. In the end, by delivering home service meals from Ruma Bodhi from our neighborhood, the two of us managed to gather about 2,000 rupees. But what kind of business could be started with just 2,000 rupees? This thought was weighing on my head when suddenly an idea flashed in my mind. At that time, the results of the Madhyamik and higher secondary examinations were published in the form of gazettes. Whoever could buy the gazette first and reach his locality the quickest made the most profit. By checking a candidate's division and informing them that they had passed, one could earn 50 to 100 rupees per head. Only the news was free for those who had failed. To get a gazette, people had to stand in line in front of the board office from the previous night. There was practically a black market for the gazettes, divided area by area. Rajat then said, "Idea! Listen, Sona, I've just thought of a brilliant way to increase our capital. The Madhyamik results are supposed to be out tomorrow. We'll go early in the morning and stand in line at the board office, take a gazette and then go straight to our Hari Mohan school. The earlier we reach, the greater the profit." I became excited at once. It wasn't a bad plan at all. "Oh, I haven't even told you my name. My good name is Swarnav Singarai, but all the lion glory has faded, and now I'm simply Sona." At the tea stall in our neighborhood, Pochada mocks me and says, "You're just gold-plated gold. What a perfect pair. One diamond, Rajat, and one gilded gold. Now if only we find a fake sapphire, Lord Shiva himself will jump off his mount and sit on your shoulders." Since I have no proper reply to this sarcasm, I simply smile and say, "You'll see, one day the whole neighborhood will be proud of us." The next day, both of us were supposed to wake up early and go to Kolkata. But by the time our morning arrived, it was already 9:30. Somehow gulping down tea and bread, we both ran to catch the train. When we finally reached the board office, it was nearly 2:30 in the afternoon. There we saw the place swarming with people. A few petty local toughs from our neighborhood were wandering around there. They usually black market cinema tickets. Today they had come for the same business. The moment he saw me, a boy named Kalu bared his teeth and said, "Well, Sona and Silver, what are you doing here? Go back home. This trade isn't for the likes of you. No point wasting your time." Rajat squeezed my hand and whispered, "Don't listen to them. Every business has competitors. You have to see that as inspiration. You must stay firm on your goal."
As expected, the moment the results were announced at 5 in the evening, a tsunami seemed to crash upon the Gazette counter. Before that surge, we were nothing more than specks of dust blown away like straw. Roger tried several times to push forward, but couldn't even get close to the window. After half an hour of struggle, the Gazettes were finished. The sales window closed. With our hopes shattered, we looked at each other. It was clear that this business idea had failed. Those who had managed to get the Gazettes hurried away at once. Within a short while, the crowd began to thin out. A few others like us were still wandering around here and there, hoping that somehow we might at least get hold of the page of our own area. Rajat sighed and said, "Come on, Sona, we're failures in this business." Just then, a lanky, scarecrow-like fellow appeared before us and said, "Want a Gazette? Come aside." Hoping we had stumbled upon hidden treasure, we followed him eagerly. Standing behind a house, he asked, "Which district's page do you want?" Without thinking, I blurted out, "Hooghly." The boy said, "It'll cost 3,000 rupees. "What? The whole Gazette cost 200 rupees, and a single district page cost 3,000. After expenses, we now had only 1,850 rupees left from our capital. Rajat politely said, "Can't you make it a little less, brother?" The boy looked at him as if he were seeing an alien. Then he said, "Les, come tomorrow to the scrap dealer next door. You can buy it for 1 rupee a kilo. Move aside, brother. Don't waste my business time." Still, Rajat hesitated and said, "Well, if it could be around 1,500. I whispered angrily, "What are you saying? 1,500? Rajat pressed my hand to silence me. The boy thought for a moment, then asked, "Which area of Hooghly?" Rajat said, "Kanakul." The boy replied, "No bargaining. One price, 1,000. Take it or leave." Rajat agreed. The boy stuffed the Kanakul page into our hands and disappeared. Rajat said proudly, "This is the second part of business. You have to bargain while buying. Goods worth 3,000 for just 1,000. Now come on, we don't have any time." Evening was falling. Clutching the Gazette page, we rushed to catch the train. By the time we reached our station, it was 8 at night. Huge queues stood in front of the sweet shops, meaning the Gazette had already reached here before us. Still, we couldn't lose heart. We ran toward the school. But when we got there, everything was almost deserted. Hardly anyone was around. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Hey, brother, come here. Only 20 in First Division. Tell me the roll number, quick." The boy who came running while shouting this was none other than Kalu. Seeing us, he said in disappointment, "Oh, you two, what brings you here? Do one thing, keep this Gazette of mine. Night shift will start at the hall. I'm going there for business. Whatever you earn now is yours." Saying this, he shoved the Gazette in my hand and ran off. After such a huge loss in our first business attempt, we were deeply dejected. One day we were sitting gloomily under the twin banyan trees when we saw Ramlal hurrying toward us. Ramlal runs a small laundry and ironing service in our area. By runs, I mean his family has been occupying a tiny ground floor room of a broken roadside house for generations. As Ramlal came closer, I said, "Hey Ramlal, what's the matter? Where are you rushing off to so worried?" Ramlal came and plopped down in front of us. Then he said, "Sona Babu, Rupa Babu, you must help me with something." I said, "What kind of help do you need?" Ramlal said, "You know my whole family is in Bihar. I have land there too. All this time, my elder brother looked after everything. Yesterday, he passed away. My wife is not well either. I must return to my village. But there's one difficulty. I don't know if I'll be able to come back. And if I'm not here, someone else will take this shop. So I thought, until I can return, if you two could look after the shop. It's by the roadside. You could even start some business there if you like. You may assume that perhaps I will never come back." Hearing this, Rajat's eyes began to shine. A business, a shop by the roadside, even if it was broken and shabby. From there, they could begin searching for their goal. Ramlal handed the shop keys to us and left. The next morning, we opened Ramlal's shop and began cleaning it. Ramlal had left almost everything he had collected from different people. There were a few bundles as well. He had told us that no one had yet come to claim them. If the rightful owners ever came, we were to verify them and return the bundles. Little did we know that from this broken, rickety laundry, we would one day step into a land of dreadful death. The few bundles of clothes that Ramlal had left behind, we placed inside his cracked glass cupboard. The room was part of a very old house. The walls and the floor were full of cracks. The condition of the door hardly needs mentioning. Perhaps because people value their own possessions too highly, Ramlal feared that someone would occupy it. In reality, judging by the state of the place, if no one came for a day or two, snakes and frogs would surely claim it as their own. Moreover, there was no certainty about how long the room itself would remain standing. Staying here itself felt like a challenge.
By the time we finished cleaning, we were exhausted. I said to Rajat, "Tell me, what business are we supposed to run in this place? In its present condition, at best we could reopen the laundry or maybe a small barber shop. No other business would attract customers, and neither of those is possible for us." Rajat stopped me and said, Wait. If you become this impatient, no business will ever work. We've got a room beside the road without spending a single rupee. That's no small matter. Now we must keep our heads cool and think of a business that won't require capital investment, yet will open the path to earning capital." Suddenly an idea struck me. Excitedly I said, "Listen Rajat, what if we start a brokerage business? Or maybe open a drinking den here? People could buy liquor elsewhere and come here to drink in peace." Rajat snapped. "Does a good business idea never occur to you? A drinking den. The little food we get at home twice a day will stop altogether. Instead, we'll get prodded by the police for free. Next, you'll say we should rent the place out to unmarried couples by the hour. Nonsense. Just keep quiet and let me think." So I had no choice but to stop talking. Before we knew it, the monsoon arrived. It rained on and off throughout the day, and every evening brought another shower. Whether our business started or not, thanks to Ramlal's palace, the two of us at least had a shelter to rest our heads during the day. Meanwhile, Rajat had asked Bhumbal from the neighborhood to cut a tin sheet from an oil can and paint something neatly on it. On it, Rajat had written, "Satyanashi R.S." and below it, the picture of a pair of black glasses and a stick. I asked Rajat, "Doesn't that mean detective? Are we going to run a detective business? The glasses are fine, but why the stick? Shouldn't there have been a revolver instead?" Rajat replied, "Bringing a sense of decency into advertising is an art of business. You must remember that. That's why there's a stick instead of a revolver. We wanted to convey that we are firm and strong like a staff." I said, "But can we really become detectives? I've heard detectives have sharp intelligence and tremendous physical strength. They can hit targets with a pistol like Arjuna. Where do we have such abilities? Who would give us a case?" Rajat snapped, "Sona, raise your confidence to the upper level. In business, words like can't and won't work don't exist. A case will come to you one day or another. You have to sit patiently like someone fishing. When the fish bites, you pull the line. I mean, take the time needed to solve the case. After that, there will be no shortage of name and fame. Then those pistols will come on their own. You'll learn to use one in 10 minutes. And remember one more thing. Detectives don't always solve cases with physical strength. They use their brains. Read a little. Read Kaka Babu. One of his legs was useless." After this long speech, Rajat stopped. I understood that unless this detective ghost is driven out of his head, it wouldn't leave him. Before we realized it, almost 15 days had passed since we opened our detective shop, but not a single customer had come yet. A few curious people sometimes stopped in front of the door, blew out smoke from their beedies, and crookedly read the signboard. Then they offered free advice, saying the idea was very good and that something like this was much needed given the condition of the country. But if we wanted to do such work, sitting here wouldn't help. We should patrol different places all night with alert eyes and pounce the moment we saw something suspicious. This kind of self-serving wisdom. They even suggested that if we stayed up all night guarding the neighborhood, they could sleep peacefully. Some drunken addicts came occasionally. Their cases involved finding where their wives had hidden money or getting advance information about when the police might raid the neighborhood. All sorts of ridiculous work. Rajat always said only one thing: we must keep patience. That too is a kind of capital in business. A customer is like Lakshmi, whoever the customer may be. Oh dear, I began to feel as if I myself was going mad. Like every day, we had opened the shop in the evening and was sitting there. Today again, a heavy rain had started since the afternoon. The spray of rain was so strong that keeping the front shutter open was impossible. So we closed it, left the door slightly ajar, switched on the dirty, dim light inside, and sat there like ghosts, waiting for a customer. The drain beside the road had overflowed with water. Through the gap in the door, the filthy water was trying to send the floating polythene from the street inside our room. But Rajat had only one argument. Just as crimes often happen on stormy nights, any big case also secretly reaches detectives on such disastrous nights. So no matter how much dirty water flooded the floor, the two of us sat perched on the table, hoping that somewhere through that murky water, the object of our desire, a case, might arrive. Suddenly, the gap in the door widened a little. Through that opening, a thin face covered with beard and mustache appeared. I jumped in fright.
Good heavens, on such a stormy night, was it a restless spirit or a madman? The thin face said, "May I come inside?" Rajat immediately jumped down from the table into the water on the floor. At once he made me get down as well. In a warm voice he said, "Come in, come in." The man entered the room. His left leg was missing. Poverty was written all over his body. He wore a torn robe-like garment, had a bald patch in the middle of his head, and the uncombed hair on both sides hung wet and stuck together from the rain. The moment he stepped inside, a terrible smell spread through the room. It was clear that he had taken his first bath in this rain. It was the same sharp smell that comes from street dogs when they get drenched.
On the very first day, Rajat had told me that whoever came, we must note down their details carefully in a register. It might help later during investigation. All the drunkards who had come earlier, I had written down their information. Today too, I opened the notebook and began doing the same. As the man entered the room, Rajat pointed seriously toward the chair in front of him and said, "Please sit comfortably first, then we will hear everything you have to say." The man politely pulled the chair and sat down. We took the chairs opposite him. Water was dripping from the heel of his foot. Every now and then frogs and tiny insects hopped across the water. And the entire room was filled with the smell coming from the stranger's body like some strange kind of deodorant. In a low voice, the man said, "May I have a little drinking water?" I handed him the bottle. He emptied it in a single breath and let out a satisfied, "Ah." Then he took out a packet of beedies from his shoulder bag and said, "May I smoke one?" Rajat nodded in agreement with a slight Faluda-like tilt of his head. His eyes were carefully observing the stranger. I quickly noted the beedi matter in my notebook. The visitor took out one beedi for himself and extended the packet toward us, saying, "If you would like." We shook our heads. Even if we had wanted one, I believe we would never have taken a beedi from him. After a moment of silence, Rajat asked the visitor, "Now tell us, what is your name? Where have you come from? How can we help you?" The man remained silent for a while, then he said, "As I entered, I saw written on the door, 'Truth Seekers.' I don't know what that means. Actually, I had come here looking for someone else. The address shouldn't be wrong. Could it be that he has left this place? But I badly need the thing that belongs to me." The man was clearly worried. I asked, "Maybe know whom you came here looking for?" The man stared at me with wide eyes for few seconds, then he said, Yes, of course, I'll tell you. Actually, I came here looking for a man named Ramlal." Rajat frowned and asked, "How do you know Ramlal? Are you one of his customers or do you know him in some other way?" The gentleman said, "Know him? Well, he's my childhood friend. Long ago, my adolescence was spent in this very room." I was startled. What was the man saying? His adolescence was spent here? That meant he was from this very place. But I couldn't remember ever seeing him here before. Although he looked over 70 now, Ramlal couldn't be more than 60. How could he be Ramlal's friend? We used to chat with Ramlal quite often. From what he had told us, this business had been running in this room through his ancestors for generations. If that was true, then where had this man come from? I had never heard Ramlal mention his name or anything about him. Rajat asked, "You used to live in this room? Strange. Ramlal never mentioned anything like that. And you have come to the right place. There is no mistake. This used to be Ramlal's shop. He has now gone back to his village due to family matters and there's no certainty of his return. You can tell us what you needed from Ramlal. Perhaps we can help you. But before that, we need to know who you are." Jia took a final drag from his beedi and out of his habit tried to crush it on the floor. But the floor was full of water. Seeing the beedi float away, he clicked his tongue and said, "Oh dear, I've made the room dirty." Rajat raised his hand reassuringly. The man said, "You wouldn't recognize me even if I told you my name. It's not a matter of today. It has been more than 40 years since I lived here. It was my father who brought Ramlal's father to this house. My father had received a share of this property from his maternal uncle's side, 2 rooms of this house, so in one of them, Ramlal's parents came to live with his elder brother and sister. I was quite young then, perhaps 13 or 14. Though Ramlal was much younger, he became my playmate and friend." Rajat interrupted, "But you still haven't told me your name." Jia cleared his throat and said, Jia ul Haq.
After the partition, we had to leave our ancestral home and came to live at my father's maternal uncle's house, here. During the riots here, almost everyone from my father's side had to flee because of Hindu attacks. Some even died. Only one of my father's aunts remained because she was crippled, so no one harmed her. I said, "You came to meet a childhood friend after 40 years, and that too on such a stormy night. I still don't quite understand the matter. What suddenly happened that made you rush here in such difficulty in this condition?" Jia smiled and said, "I lived here 40 years ago, and that's when I first met him. But I never said we had no contact during these 40 years. The last time I met him was about 12 years ago in Kidderpore. He had come to my place. Actually, to be precise, I had called him there for a special reason." Rajat frowned and asked, "A special reason? What happened after so many years that made you remember him?" Jia replied, "I had called him that day because I wanted to keep an important thing in his custody. At that moment, the only trustworthy person who came to my mind was Ramlal. I said, 'What kind of thing was it that you couldn't trust to anyone else?'"
Jia smiled faintly and said, "A broken box, a memory of my father." Rajat asked curiously, "A broken box? You called Ramlal all the way to Calcutta for a broken box? What kind of treasure was in it that you couldn't trust anyone else with it?" Jia said, "Nothing much, a few ordinary stones and some papers." Rajat said in surprise, "Your father gave you a box filled with stones and papers to keep? Was he a geologist or something? Did he work with stones?" Jia laughed and said, No, my father was an ordinary sailor on a ship. The box wasn't exactly given by my father. After his death, it was handed over to me from the mental asylum in Ranchi." "A mental asylum? Meaning a lunatic asylum?" I looked at Rajat in disappointment. Once again, on a stormy night like this, we had fallen into the hands of a madman. From Rajat's expression, I couldn't quite tell whether he felt hopeful or not after hearing that. Jia smiled and said, "You are thinking I must be mad because I've come searching for a box of stones belonging to my father from a lunatic asylum, aren't you? When I first received the box, I thought the same as you, that it was nothing but a madman's nonsense. But my illusion broke when I discovered that those stones were not ordinary stones, they were Brazilian stones. And the very act of trying to find out about them became my misfortune. I didn't realize that they had come into my hands as messengers of death." I straightened in my seat. Whatever it was, at least after opening our detective office, we had finally found someone who sounded like a real client. Rajat said, "Brazilian stones? Did your father go to Brazil? What exactly is the matter?" Jia replied, "That is a long history. If you don't mind, could I get something to eat? Actually, for the past 1.5 days, nothing but water has entered my stomach. I have come here penniless. If Ramlal had been here, perhaps after getting the box I could have arranged something. But that is no longer possible. He has left this place. Who knows whether he kept that box for all these 12 years or not? Perhaps he threw it away, thinking it was just a box filled with useless stones." In the evening, we had brought a packet of puffed rice and chanachur to eat. Half of it had already gone into our stomachs, but some still remained in the packet. I handed it to him and said, "There's puffed rice. Will that do?" Jia smiled broadly and said, "For a hungry man, there is no choice when it comes to food. This will do very well." He devoured some of the puffed rice with water and said, "That feels better." Rajat said, "Now tell us, what was there in those stones that made you think of them as messengers of death?" Jia let out a long sigh and said, "That is a very long story. Do you have the time to listen to it?" I assured Jia and said, "Go ahead, we want to hear it. The rain outside has become so heavy that I don't think we'll be able to return home tonight anyway. Wait, let me press the door shut. Otherwise snakes or other creatures might crawl into the room along with the water." Jia began. After partition, when the situation had calmed down a little, one day my father met Ramlal's father among the crowds of refugees. My father was a soft-hearted man. Having lost his own home, he understood the pain of homelessness even more deeply.
One day, my father brought Ramlal's father and his entire family to this house. The two of them tried to run their households by working on other people's land. Suddenly, war broke out in the country. Prices of goods shot up, and due to natural calamities, agriculture nearly collapsed. Burdened by the responsibility of the family, my father then took a job as a ship's hand at the Kidderpore docks. In those days, almost all important export work was done through ships. But it wasn't as if my father went there and immediately got a job. One of my father's cousins was a leader in the dock workers' union. With his help, my father managed to get work there as a porter. At that time, a drought had caused a severe shortage of food in the country. Father didn't want to leave my mother and me and our two brothers behind in this village house. My father had a dream that we would study and become educated. At that time, there were hardly any madrasas here. Moreover, after partition, a terrible divide had grown between Hindus and Muslims. Everyone began to look at each other with suspicion. The local Bengali schools would not allow us to study there. So after getting that job, father brought my mother, my brother and me to Calcutta. We settled in a makeshift tin shed built on railway land in Metiabruts. All responsibility for this house here was left to Ramlal's father. My friend Ramlal was very young then, but he insisted on coming along. In the end, my mother brought him along too. After reaching Calcutta, father admitted the three of us to school. Ramlal in a Hindi school and my brother and I in a madrasa. I entered school at a slightly older age. My younger brother Imtiaz had no interest in studies from the very beginning. He didn't like to read. He would roam around playing all day. And you know what Metiabruj was like in those days. It wasn't a good place at all. Murders and assaults happened almost daily. The area was practically a breeding ground for smugglers. Because of Imtiaz, father often had to hear harsh words from people. Father disciplined him in every way a father should, but Imtiaz never changed. Meanwhile, Ramlal and I passed the primary stage and moved on to higher classes. In my heart, I clung to my father's dream, that one day we would leave that tin shed, repair our ancestral house in the village, and live together there again. Jia fell silent and looked at the bottle. There was a little water left at the bottom. Looking at us, he asked if anyone wanted it. When we shook our heads, he gulped down the remaining water. Rajat said, "Now tell us, what was there in those stones that made you think of them as messengers of death?" Jia let out a long sigh and said, "That is a very long story. Do you have the time to listen to it?" I assured Jia and said, "Go ahead, we want to hear it. The rain outside has become so heavy that I don't think we'll be able to return home tonight anyway. Wait, let me press the door shut. Otherwise snakes or other creatures might crawl into the room along with the water."
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the next episode. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and share it with your friends.